I'll do a little spiel here before he comes out. James Ellroy was born in Los Angeles in 1948. His LA quartet novels, The Black Dahlia, Big Nowhere, LA Confidential, and White Jazz have won numerous awards and are international bestsellers. His novel, American Tabloid, was Time Magazine's Novel of the Year for 1995. His memoir, My Dark Places, was a Time Best Book and a New York Times Notable Book for 1997. His novel, The Colt 6000, was a New York Times Notable Book in 2001. His most recent novel, This Storm, is the second book in his second LA quartet. The design of this series is unprecedented. Ellroy takes characters from the original LA quartet and the Underworld USA trilogy and places them in Los Angeles during World War II as significantly younger people. His books are not sanitized for our protection. And it's a great honor to welcome James Ellroy. Please give him a warm place.
Jim, you dropped your hat.
Oh, James.
James, sorry.
Grin. More applause. Good evening, peepers, prowlers, pederass, pedants, panty sniffers, punks, and pimps. I'm James Ellroy, the death dog with the hog log, and the foul owl with the death growl. I am the author of 19 books, masterpieces all. They precede all my future masterpieces. These books will leave you reamed, steamed, and dry cleaned, tied, dyed, and swept to the side, screwed, blued, tattooed, and bafangooed. These are books for the whole fucking family. If the name of your family is the Manson family. If each and every one of you buy 1,000 copies of my new book tonight, you'll be able to have unlimited sex with each and every person on this earth that you desire every night for the rest of your lives. If each and every one of you buy 2,000 copies of my new book tonight, you will be able to have unlimited sex with each and every person on this earth that you desire every night for the rest of your lives and still get into heaven as the result of a special dispensation signed by me, the Reverend Ellroy. If each and every one of you buy 3,000 copies of my great new book tonight, you get the sex, you get into heaven, and for the first time in its sun-baked history, Scottsdale, Arizona will rule the world. You heard it here first off the record on the QT, and very hush, hush. T.S. Eliot wrote, if you came this way, starting from anywhere, at any time, and in any season, it would always be the same. You'd have to put off sense and notion. You are not here to instruct yourself, or to inform curiosity, or to carry a report. You are here to kneel where prayer has been proven valid. And for me, James Ellroy, the death dog of American literature, newly enshrined in the Everyman's Library perennial series, let me say then, what better place to bow my head in prayer than a place where the written word, not digitally presented, but words printed on paper, is honored, venerated, and indeed worshipped. Yeah! I put a spell on you. You ain't nobody's audience but mine. Here's another pithy quote, Cats. This is the great humorist P.J. O'Rourke on Americans. We're 3/4 grizzly bear and 2/3 car wreck and descended from a stock market crash on our mother's side. When we snort coke in Houston, people lose their hats and cop D on T. A rape and a mugging is our way of saying cheerio. And concludingly, hell can't hold our sock hops. This storm and the first novel in my second LA quartet that precedes it, Perfidia. These, the first two books of the second LA quartet, are odes to, appreciations of the hard-charging, shit-kicking generation of America that Mr. O'Rourke writes about. Let's flash back to the winter, the dark, cold winter of 2008. I was living in my lonely divorce pad in LA, my smog-bound fatherland. I had a crib at the Ravenswood Apartments on Rossmore on the southern edge of Hollywood. Recently divorced, looking out my southbound office window. I was on the #1 most wanted list of Alimony International. And a brilliant synaptic flash took me over. I saw a vivid picture of forlorn-looking Japanese in the back of a U.S. Army transport bus headed up a snow-covered pass to the Manzanar internment camp in the winter of 1942. It hit me. I will write the second LA quartet. I will take characters, real life and fictional, from the first LA quartet. 4 novels set between 1946 and 1958. The Black Dahlia, The Big Nowhere, LA Confidential, NY Jazz, and the Underworld USA trilogy. 3 novels set in America at large between 58 and 72. American Tabloid, The Cold 6000, and Blood's a Rover. And I will plunk them down in LA during World War II as significantly younger people. The first novel in the second LA quartet, Perfidia, my epic story, set the month of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. 703, scintillating. That is spelled S-I-N with a little hyphen, T-I-L-L-A-T-I-N-G. Expose of the grave injustice of the Japanese internment, published to tumultuous acclaim in the fall of 2014. Big bestseller. I follow it up now with This Storm. Picks up the action 2 days later, New Year's Eve, 41 into 42. Goes through the 8th of May. The second LA quartet is now half complete, and there is nothing more that I would rather do right now, tonight, June 20th, 2019 AD, than to answer the most invasively over personal questions that each and every one of you peepers, prowlers, pedants, panty sniffers, punks, and pimps has for me. Except for one thing, I don't talk about America today. I don't talk about President Trump. I don't talk about contemporary issues, regardless of how much people may think that 1942 America is meant to stand in for 2019 America, because it does not. I live in the past. I am computer illiterate. I have never booted onto a computer at all. I've never used a cell phone. I write my books by hand. My steely resolve to live in the past informs my books with whatever power and vivid verisimilitude that they may possess. As a kid, I got hooked on history way back circa 1955, before my parents split the sheets. I would steal into a hallway closet and read through stacks of Life magazine that were that tall. I was obsessed with history then. I'm obsessed with history now. I look resolutely back into the past. In 1956, when I was 8 years of age, I said something that alerted my mother to the fact that I believed World War II was still going on. My mother said, "Au contraire, Sonny, it ended 3 years before your birth in 1945. I didn't believe her then, and I don't believe her now. I have a muse. It's history, and I have never forsaken history, and history has never forsaken me since I wrote my first historically based novel way back in 1985. I'm honored that you're here tonight. This is my last stop before I go home to Denver, Colorado. I've got a day trip to Austin, Texas next week sometime. Beyond that, that's it for this storm 2019 in the English language. I've been to Britain, I've been to 14 cities here in the States. It's time to wrap this up. This will be my final performing gig. With that in note, I'd be honored to hear your questions. Sir.
I also believe World War II hasn't ended, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
I don't have any. It's an emotional reaction. It's a referendum on the extent to which I live in the past. I don't discuss the world today.
All right.
I don't know what's going on in the world today. I can tell you about the Suez Crisis in 1946, but I lived through the Korean War,
Right.
and I don't recall it being anywhere in the American consciousness when compared to World War II. I live in an unmediated state with the past. The language of the past, the music of the past, the racial attitudes of the past, they are imbued within me, good, bad, indifferent. And I love the American idiom. I love racial invective. I love Yiddish. I love black hepcat, hipster jazz patois. I love police jive talk. I love penal code abbreviations, even if I don't know what offenses, hold on, the numbers designate.
Very cool.
Yeah. I live for it, I live with it, and I will never forsake it. Sir, yes.
Ooga booga.
Yeah.
Just a comment on that, on like your idioms. That was one
Yeah.
I like.
Ooga booga. Yeah.
Well, I'm about 150 pages in this storm right now, and there's a moment where there's references and a conversation that Hitler was Jewish, and you kind of coined the phrase "lox jockey." That's like clever. That's like brilliant. I mean, your use
brother,
of
I
the word.
can't say I got it. It's not original.
Well,
Yeah, I
the
got
way you
John
incorporated
Gregory
it was
Dunn.
like it was good, and I wanted to. There's a lot of references to, in a lot of your books, like about like celebrities or people of that era.
Uh-huh.
Do you take liberties with that?
Yeah.
Or okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
make
there's
it
like
up.
great moments, like so far, just in the beginning of the book. There's like Elmer runs into Veronica Lake in an opium den.
Yeah.
Just a few
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
A few days later, I read a quote by Raymond Chandler when he was working on the Blue Dahlia with her, and he referred to her as Moronica Lake. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing just kind of collided and crashed in like Ellroy land, and
Yeah.
the references to Orson Welles, like God.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love that shit.
Yeah.
I live for it. Yeah, it's the past. What can I say?
I'm sure like
Yeah.
some of
By
it
the way,
is
the
completely-
man who immediately behind you, sir, and to your right, the man who asked the first question, sir, you look like Elmer Jackson, the real life vice cop, who is in many ways the hero of this book. If you look him up,
Elmer Jackson.
Elmer Jackson got his dick in the ringer in 1948 and 49 for the Brenda Allen Weiss scandal. He had similar features to yours. He was red-haired and he didn't have the beard, and he had some slick threads. I will grant Elmer that. But Elmer's dubious distinction is that he and Brenda Allen invented the call girl, and it all went bluey in 48 and 49, and the LAPD, as it was known back then, was toppled. Elmer Jackson. If you find there's a mugshot LAPD ID photo of Elmer, and people have told me it's online, or go to the Los Angeles Police Museum, and for 10 bucks you can get a copy of it, and you'll just look at it and you'll go, Dad.
Thanks. The rest of my life she's going to call me Elmer.
Listen, Elmer has his moments in this book here, but also to your question here, my second interlocutor here, absolute historical accuracy means next to nothing to me. I don't care. It doesn't have to be absolutely accurate. You can't diverge off the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. JFK hit November 22nd, 1963. The stuff you can't mess with. Beyond that, you have absolute latitude to fictionalize. When a researcher that I hired compiled LA Times newspaper clippings for the month of the Pearl Harbor attack, and I saw from reading through them that first accounts of the roundups of mostly innocent and occasionally fifth column Japanese were largely muddled. These accounts were. I saw, Ellroy, this is nothing but good. It gives you a great deal of latitude to fictionalize, and that's what I'm looking for. I don't want to trip over it and write myself into grievous factual error, but I want to live with fictional people comporting with real life people in a big historical context wherein I exposit the secret human infrastructure of large public events. Sir.
So, one of the things I think is great about your books, and this one is no different in that, is that you put us into a different time and a different world than the one that we know today, but it isn't these reams of exposition, it's blended in there. Is there how do you balance the history with the story so that the history doesn't get in the way of the story? How do you make it so that it comes alive? I mean, that's maybe a hard question to answer, but
No, it's an excellent question for you to ask. The outline for that book is 465 pages, and I wrote it by hand, just as I write the text on my books. I lay out in minute detail everything, broken down chapter by chapter, viewpoint by viewpoint, in minute detail, all the way through everything that has to happen. The character arcs, the investigatory arcs, the historical arcs, and all I have to do is have it typed up, stack of pages, yay high, go to New York and see my two editors at Alfred A. Knopf. Then they give me some notes, then I come home and I write the book by hand. Like, chapter 1. Elmer, you'll like this. Chapter 1, Elmer Jackson's viewpoint, Los Angeles, 9:30 p.m., 12/31/41. Elmer's on a stakeout. Billy Smith's goons, Dick Carlisle and Mike Bruning are parked in a car around the corner. They're looking for a hot prowl rapist named Tommy Glennon. Exposit this here, per Tommy Glennon. Bam. Having a superstructure that detailed allows me to live improvisationally in the individual scenes and write the hell out of them and give them the snap and the pop that makes it feel like ad-lib action, as long as I don't violate the strictures of the outline itself. And that's how I do it. That's how I get the proper measure of the history, the language, the police work, the overarching story of World War II that throbs at the heart of the series. Sure, yeah.
Me?
No, Patrick, man,
I was just wondering, you're talking about like the real life people that you have in the books that bump up against your fictional people. Do you get started knowing who those are going to be, or does that come as you're working on the project?
well, I have everything worked out in advance. You mean the historical figures in
Yeah,
particular?
yeah, but as you're starting your outline, I mean, before you start your outline or whatever, do you know it's like I need these real life people in there, and then fold them in, or how does that process kind of work for you?
When that moment I described in my office back in '08 led me to realize first thing I have to do is go over the previous 7 books that I've written, novels that I've written, compile fact sheets and chronologies, write down the ages of the characters there that I might want to use to see if they comport with the World War II time frame there. I realized going through those books, particularly the LA Quartet books, that I want the Great American Policeman, William H. Parker, to be a major character in the first 2 books. I wrote down everything that I needed pertaining to Parker. I knew that former Chief James Edgar Two Gun Davis should be a character. The current Chief, Clemens B. Call Me Jack Burrell, Fletcher Bowron, who was the mayor of Los Angeles at that time. And I saw that there were characters who were essential. And then there were characters that I wanted to use, like Orson Welles, who I've never liked, because I damn well couldn't, because he was around LA then. So you'll see in Perfidia, there's a hilarious scene where Dudley Smith, the demonic Irish American cop, opium addict, illegal alien runner, dope peddler, et al., who's having a hot early wartime affair with Betty Davis, goes with Betty Davis to see Second Run, Citizen Kane. He's taking Benzedrine. He does not want to be seeing this doofus overrated movie, and he wants to be back at Betty's swing pad in Mandeville Canyon. And who can blame him for that? So he rags, since we're in his viewpoint, on Orson Welles' Secret Lane. And there are people that I just wanted to use. Veronica Lake, for example. Well, I had no idea that Raymond Chandler called her Veronica. She was the good-looking blonde with the hair. Patrick.
Yeah, I got a question for you. I mentioned when I was introducing you about the kind of you present history in an unsanitized way, and I like how you mentioned John Gregory Dunn, the
Right.
book True Confessions.
Yeah.
Do you find that there's this tendency for people to kind of whitewash our past and to kind of present history in I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you get a sense when you read these books that these are people speaking attitudes of the day that it's of its era.
Yes, as True Confessions is by John Gregory Dunn. I don't want to censor anybody. I'm not telling anybody what he or she can write about anything, and I would appreciate it if they would reciprocate. You can you can read books that dump on America at excessive length for being a racial hellhole back in 1942, and you can read books set in World War II that over-sentimentalize and over-glamorize the greatest generation. I'm going for an effect, and it's an effect that is always mediated by the viewpoints that I write from. It's not giving away much to tell you the viewpoints of this particular book, beyond Elmer Jackson, who I've already mentioned, a real-life character who invented the call girl. There's also Hideo Ishida, who is a Japanese-American criminalist, the only Japanese on the Los Angeles Police Department, and a closeted homosexual in love secretly from afar with Dudley Smith. There's Dudley Smith himself and his involved story of coming here to America from Ireland circa 1919, sponsored by Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., the nefarious dad of President JFK.
Who makes a great appearance in Perfidia.
JFK has a walk-on in Perfidia. JFK's off in the Pacific when this book here is set, so he's not coming back, and I've had it with JFK. I've given it the office for that guy.
And just
I
real-
wrote from the perspective of the guys who killed him in American Capital.
Just real quickly, I don't want to hog the thing, but we talked a little bit in the back about the wonderful female characters in this
Yeah,
series.
well, I was about to get to them.
Right.
Joan Conville. And Joan Conville is an Ellroy archetype. She is part of a troika formed by my World War II generation mother. And most of you folks know the story. My mother was murdered in El Monte outside LA in 58 when I was 10. Unsolved crime to this day. Nobody knows who did it, and I wrote a book about it. Okay, there's that. There's also two actresses who were very much in my thoughts and my heart when I was a kid. The noted film and television stage actress Shirley Knight, who is still with us. Miss Knight is, I think, 83 years old. And the late Lois Nettleton. I saw both of these women the first time on the Naked City TV show, and if you like drama from TV's golden age, you can get a groovy box set of all of those shows, filmed on location in New York City between 58 and 63, and it's the best looking TV show ever made, and a lot of the episodes are damn good. And there's LeGrand Lois, and there's LeGrand Shirley in their youth. They went through me, these two women, like a shot way back when. Neither of them were really World War II generation women. Ms. Knight was 9 when the war ended, and Ms. Nettleton was 17. But they're of that era to me, as my mother was in real life. And Joan Conville, the Navy nurse, standing in for my mother in this storm, and Kay Lake, who is the ultimate heroine of my much earlier written but latter set book, The Black Dahlia, is the overall heroine of the entire quartet. And my wife thinks that Kay Lake is my greatest fictional creation, and I agree.
She stood up to Dudley Smith.
Brother, come on. No, don't give that shit away.
Or Perfidia.
It doesn't matter. Don't give it away anyway.
Sorry.
Yes.
One of the things I love about your writing, and I think you do exceptionally well, is you make your setting like a character. And is that something when you first were starting out that you intentionally did, or did you find it as you were writing that was your process?
LA lives within me, and I'm from LA, and if you want a key to my obsession with Los Angeles, you look at the back of my books and it says that I was born in Los Angeles in 1948. So I was born in LA, the film noir epicenter at the height of the film noir era, even though my books are not noir. And a great many things are called noir today, even though the noir era ended a great many decades ago. LA is all instinct for me, LA is all memory, LA is all obsession. I've spent most of the past 38 years living outside of LA, and I have never viewed LA as an outsider, say as Raymond Chandler did, who was born in Chicago in 1888 and grew up in England and came to Los Angeles during the Roaring 20s. I don't feel compelled to explain LA as a state of mind. I understand that the movie business and agribusiness and big oil are there, but I never treat it schematically in that manner. It's simply where I'm from. You'll note that there's not a lot of physical descriptions of LA in my books. Most people err in that regard. Raymond Chandler, who I think is a negligible writer compared to Dashiell Hammett and Ross MacDonald, over-described LA to an extreme fault. He wasn't from there. Ross MacDonald, a dedicated conservationist, over-describes flora and fauna to beyond an extreme fault, particularly in his latter novels. I don't see it that way. I'm from there and it pops off the page. Yes, ma'am.
Speaking of Raymond Chandler and noir, I just happened to be looking here, and you had a quote here in a commentary. You said, "Noir is the most scrutinized offshoot of the hard-boiled school of fiction." Could you expound on that?
Yes, I can. It's a great many film geeks, and you all know what film geeks are. Film geeks are little wimpy guys who never get laid, who go to the movies a great deal and collect phonograph records and old paperback books and are secret
Like Eddie Muller.
fetishists. Not Eddie Muller.
Okay.
Eddie Muller's a good friend of mine. And Eddie Muller, though, wears those dumb period suits from the 40s. Eddie Muller, listen, Eddie Muller and I stand in. Does everyone here know who Eddie Muller is? He introduces the TCM, Turner Classic Movie, Film Noir, TV show. Eddie and I disagree about a lot of things, like when did noir really end? Is LA Confidential film noir? Eddie and I represent emblematic noir actors. Eddie represents Edmund O'Brien, sweaty, desperate, very well dressed, as you know, from TCM, determined to impress every woman he meets. That's the one quality there that we share. That's Eddie. He's desperately looking for the next score, and he's out for blood and in over his head. I say this very fondly because Eddie's a good friend. I parenthetically and inimically represent Robert Bryan. I'm the tall psychopath looking for something that he will never find. A cache of hidden gold, a woman who looks like primetime Shirley Knight or Lois Nettleton, and I am, with my secret agenda, I am plotting the course of my own doom. What I really want is for some woman to throw herself at me, throw me the woof woof, for about 6 months or so I can murder her husband and end up in the green room at San Quentin prison, sucking the cyanide fumes because I'm really lazy, morally bereft, and I want to limit my options to a comprehensible few. Noir, it's kitsch. it's stale stuff. It's the fashion show at the Castro Theater there in San Francisco, where 2,000 people line up for Eddie's Noir City every wintertime in period attire. And there aren't many good noir movies. Most of them are hokey and sentimental or excessively bleak. And the reason that film noir was largely shot in LA has nothing to do with the themes of noir or noir's antecedents in literature, but the fact that the studios were there and it was cheap to shoot the films on location. Sir?
You've had a couple characters who wanted to fuck a relative, or several gay undercover cops,
Well,
an
that
FBI
too.
agent who wants to
Yeah.
become or kind of begins to sympathize with communism. How
Uh-huh.
do you match the degeneracies with the characters?
You know, the genesis of Danny Upshaw, you know, the closeted homosexual policeman
The first
in the
book.
big nowhere, right? He was spawned by my going to see a bad William Friedkin movie in 1980 called Cruising with Al Pacino, Paul Sorvino, and Karen Allen, where Al Pacino was a young policeman back when Al Pacino was young, and he's sent undercover because there's a bunch of homosexually themed killings in the West Village. And it's a very tame movie, it's a circumspect movie, and it's a blown opportunity and a great device. Because Pacino, and even that's ambiguous, starts to think, or we're led to believe that he thinks, that he might be gay himself. And I thought, that's an idea. So I credit Mr. Friedkin, who's a French acquaintance of mine, for this device, this idea, every chance I get. Several more questions. Sir?
As someone who has trouble keeping my characters over 50,000 word novellas, I was really impressed when I read Perfidia how you brought all your characters back and perfected those timelines. And I could see by the large outline you have that
Yeah.
must have where you that now as you continue with the series, do you have a wall chart? How do you keep the timelines and the characters straight so they don't change from what happened later? If that makes sense.
Halfway through Perfidia, I got the ideas that formed the basis of this storm. Halfway through this storm, I got the ideas that formed the basis of the new book that I'm putting together now. That's the way it's worked for me. Characters drop out, new characters reel, and previously utilized in my books drop in. I can keep it all in my head, and then each individual outline I write, and then I go back and look at all the preceding books.
And then one other question. Did you yourself come to a conclusion as to who killed Black Dahlia?
No, I did not. I stupidly co-signed Steve Odell's book, Black Dahlia Adventure, because I liked Steve. And nobody knows who killed Elizabeth Shore of the Black Dahlia. None of the theories are credible. There is no physical evidence left. We're never going to know.
So you don't buy that the doctor.
No, I don't think it's a man doctor. It's okay. He's dead. It's a long time. Yeah, it was 72 years ago. I wasn't born, so I have an alibi. But also, Orson Welles was accused in one of the books, a buried memory book by a woman called Mary Posseus Humphreys. And I don't think Orson Welles did it either. Couple more questions. Ma'am.
Former librarian. So
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
have to ask, what are your primary reference sources when you're looking up the history? Like, what are you reading? What are you looking at?
I have an assistant, and she lives in Los Angeles, and I tell her what I need, and she understands that she doesn't have to pull secret CIA documents or anything like that. I'm looking for that point where I can extrapolate fictionally. How she finds it's great. She's computer savvy, I'm computer illiterate. She bullet points, fact sheets from me, puts it all in a binder. It's a stack of pages. Sir.
I don't write, but I read a lot. I was wondering if you would share understanding of Raymond Chandler, who was writing algorithms and stuff.
I don't like it at all.
But
I think,
it's
yeah, the stories don't hold together, and Chandler himself conceded that they weren't intended to.
when I first read his first books, I thought that the way he described people, ethnicity and things like that, were fairly disturbing. And the way he described people, shoe shine or whatever, this and that. I know it was 1840, I was 6, so, but you don't like his books either.
I don't like. No, hold on now. I don't like his books. Here's my snappy epigraph on why Dashiell Hammett is far more important than Raymond Chandler, aside from the fact that he got there first and he really was a detective. Chandler wrote the man that he wanted to be in Philip Marlowe. Hammett wrote the man that he was afraid that he was in Sam Spade, Ned Beaumont, and the Continental Law. Deny it. Sir.
Unlike a lot of writers, you kind of talk about both patrol, every aspect of police work. You know, a lot of them kind of say like, I like detectives, and my detective characters hate all the other, they're superior.
Right.
What would you like to do if you were a policeman?
I never think that way because I've never wanted to be a police.
Which police do you enjoy the company of most?
Los Angeles Police Department. I was the yearly MC of their Jack Webb Awards for 13 years, a spokesman for the LAPD, Historical Society, the Police Museum. And my best friends are all those. One more question, ma'am, Barbara.
I can stand up because I'm actually reading aside the fact that your books remain your books regardless of movie interpretation. Why do you think Hollywood is so attractive to your movies? And have they had any impact to movies upon your writing?
No, they've had no effect on my writing. The best way to talk about Hollywood is to say at the outset, money is the gift that no one ever returns. The color green is always flattering, and the size, as far as film options go, is always large, which fits me swell. Hey, baby, how are you? Hey, you look good, baby. Good luck, baby. Yeah. Big fan of mine. Big fan. Hey, baby, come here.
This is Paul.
What's his name?
Paul.
Paul, baby, come on, get over here.
Paul.
Yeah. Hey.
Come on, go say hi.
You say hi to Uncle Lo.
Now you I scared you.
Yeah. I'll see you later. Yeah, you look good, babe. You look good. Okay, we're talking about Hollywood.
Really answered my question correctly. Why do you think Hollywood is so, if we could say it, obsessed with your books and turning them into movies?
Well, there have been 3 movies made from my books. I'm dubious about all 3 of them. There's the overpraised LA Confidential. There is the execrably praised The Black Dahlia. Black Dahlia, execrably praised, sold 50 times more books for me in 7 weeks than the overpraised LA Confidential did in 22 years. There's a movie with James Woods, who Patrick looks like. Patrick, stand up. Face these people here. Doesn't this man look like James Woods? I mean, really? Yeah, come on. He's a dead ringer. Yeah.
I don't share his dubious politics.
Yeah. And they give you some options, though, out of nowhere. Anybody who takes option money should realize they'll never make the movie. It's extremely unlikely, and if they do, they'll mess it up past redemption. So there you go. I'm ahead of the game. And film buyout money and option money has financed largely my 2 auspicious divorces. So I'm nothing but grateful. If you want me more than a paycheck from Hollywood, you're really out of your mind. Does anybody want to ask me the auspicious metaphysical question, why do you write?
Why do you write?
You come on, louder, please.
Why do you write?
In my craft or sullen art, exercised in the still night, when only the moon rages and the lovers lie abed with all their griefs in their arms, I labor by singing light, not for the strut and trade of charms upon the ivory stages, but for the common wages of their most secret heart. Not for the proud man apart do I write on these spindrift pages, but for the lovers, their arms round the griefs of the ages, who pay no praise or wages, nor heed my craft or art. Dylan Thomas, thank you, God bless you.